Hello, Kirby again, as we launch into the 11th episode of Zoo Crew Revue, where we will be reviewing the 10th issue of Captain Carrot and his amazing zoo crew, and pair it with the classic Looney Tunes short, Steel Wool. And before I get started, I just wanted to say thank you for your patience in the delay between episodes. I moved into my first house and whatnot, so that took a lot of my time, and I hopefully should be back to a minimum of an episode a month schedule from now on. Let's get started with our cover, penciled and inked by Scott Shaw. Captain Carrot is the Star Wars of funny animal comics, or is it vice versa? Anyway, Yankee Poodle deserves an Oscar as usual. Rover Barkett, Daily Variety. I'm not big on this being right above the title, just because I don't think it has a whole lot to do with the issue, but luckily right beneath it we get Where Walks the Wuz-Wolf, which I think is a reference to X-Men number 13, Where Walks the Juggernaut. But if there's a more literary reference that they're both alluding to, please just let me know. He walks right here. That's where. As the Wuz-Wolf, credited to this design going to Shaw, battles the zoo crew on top of a beachfront building's roof. The Wuz-Wolf has knocked Captain Carrot clean into the sky, has Fastback running scared, shrugging off the combined blasts of Alley Cat Tabra and Yankee Poodle, and not even noticing Rubber Duck wrapped around his bicep while holding up a little pig dressed up like Super Mario. As a little arrow points out, if you can't find the porcine powerhouse on this cover, you're not really trying. As the familiar face of Pig Iron looks on in terror in a little circle. Let's begin with our pertinent data for this issue. Cover date, December 1982. On sale date, September 23rd, 1982. Our main story is plotted and edited by Roy Thomas, scripted by E. Nelson Bridwell, penciled by Stan Goldberg, inked by Al Gordon, lettered by Carrie Spiegel, and colored by Carl Gafford. And once again, Goldberg, inked by Gordon, I think makes for a fine substitute by Shaw, but as always, he is sorely missed. And before I get started with the main story, I just want to say up front, I am not the biggest E. Nelson Bridwell fan. I don't think it's so much that he's bad as that, in my experience, he tends to have a much older and drier writing style than I tend to like. However, apparently he could tell other writers how many moons Krypton had at various points in its history before certain ones blew up and in which order, so he's got that going for him, and I do appreciate that level of nerdity. Our main story, Curse of the Wuz-Wolf, opens with a really great splash page as Captain Carrot is hopping through a classic superhero training course with giant metal crushers, laser beams, death spikes, flamethrowers, and machine guns going off, while he encourages, "Come on, Zoo Crew! This confidence course I designed will help us train for any emergency!" As the rest look taken aback, with Alley Cat Tabra saying, "Frankly, Captain, I don't have any great confidence in this course." "I have. I'm confident I could get killed." "I think we all was conned into it." The next couple of pages are a really good showcasing of the Zoo Crew's powers as they each take on the course, starting with Fastback. And as the reptilian rocket effortlessly dodges the obstacles, Rubber Duck covers his eyes, saying, "I can't look. Is he still alive?" "Shucks, these here little old lasers ain't no faster than light. Don't hardly give me no challenge at all." And as Fastback finishes the course, he ends it with a classic speedster show-off bit of dropping used ammo, saying, "By the way, I picked up these shells whilst the machine guns was ejecting them. How about y'all?" Even Yankee Poodle gets a really good demonstration of using one hand to use her powers to soar over the obstacles, while having the other have the projectiles and lasers get fired back at him. Next up is Rubber Duck and Alley Cat Tabra deciding to make a race of it, with the former stretching through the bars while the latter uses her magic Wanda to phase through them. The malleable mallard hits a snag when he has to loop-de-loop out of the way of lasers. Alley Cat Tabra takes on the machine gun fire with her sorcery, but let the bullets become flowers and perfume. Uh-oh, I didn't mean for the perfume to come in bottles. Last up is Pig Iron. Call that a tough course? Looks to me like a lead pipe cinch." "Yeah, well, watch it or they'll carry you out in a naughty pine box instead." "Look out! Here comes Pig Iron!" Pig Iron just starts strolling through the flamethrowers. "Hey, Cap,
Can't you come up with anything more threatening than these measly flames? They can't singe the swine of steel.
Crunching through the bars and just laughing off the gunfire, but it's the lasers hitting him that hurts. And when he goes to take a swing, he misses, and his fist goes right through the drywall, causing the pipes to burst.
One punch will put him out and... Oops!
No! Not there! Yeah, I know a lot about that already now. As the room is rapidly filling with water, Captain Carrot quips, "Course, this could be another great obstacle." "What obstacle?" "I love it," says Rubber Duck as he's just kind of enjoying the water. Now at the phone, Captain Carrot goes, "I suppose we really should get it fixed. I'll call a plumber. Even the superheroes can't do everything after all." As the captain calls a plumber Rubber Duck recommended, we cut to the plumber, Andy Wolf, having a psychiatry session with Dr. Sigmund Frog. Andy Wolf was originally created by Otto Fuhr in Leading Comics number 23, alongside a certain cast iron klutz. Dr. Frog, taking notes, says, "Ja, you have been experiencing strange sensations, Mr. Wolf?"
That's about the size of it, Doc. It always involves pigs.
"Figs, did you say?"
No! Pigs!
Wolf goes on to relate how he actually wanted to eat Peter Pork chops back in the day, but Dr. Frog reminds him, "Clearly a revision to primitive type to the days when wolves actually ate piggies and sheep and pussycats ate mice and like dot. Such revisions gave rise to the legend of Wuz-Wolves, victims of anthropology, wolves turning into human beings."
But Doc, there ain't really no such animal as a human being, is there?
So I am really glad that the series has already covered this carnivorous topic, or it seemed like a little bit out of nowhere thing just to accommodate this story. And it does kind of help to keep those original funny animal comic stories in continuity, even though the only people who would care are Roy Thomas and E. Nelson Bridwell. Dr. Frog continues while looking at the clock. "True, humans is nothing but fairy tale monsters, and I will finish my analysis next week, 'cause your time is up."
Oh, Don, and I'm still having those dreams.
"Don't worry, this isn't nearly so bad as what their Zoo Crew took care of when doggies was chasing cars and everybody slipped back to their days before animals was civilized." And the editor's box humorously at first complains that Dr. Frog didn't read the first issue with Superman, before going on to say, maybe he at least read part of it. The doctor reassures Andy Wolf he has nothing to worry about and can continue on his plumbing business as he shows them the door, reminding him to pay. As Andy Wolf leaves, he thinks to himself, while the psychiatry sessions are expensive, he hopes to be cured, before pulling out his steel coin engraved with a pentagram, which the editor's box panics. "Uh-oh, Wolfie, it's also the sign of the Wuz-Wolf." Just right out of Alon Chaney's Wolfman, which really makes me wish I could have gotten this episode out in time for Halloween. Andy Wolf returns to his office, where his secretary informs him of the job for the Zoo Crew. Ecstatic at the news, he is smiling and thinking to himself,
"Wow, and I thought getting business from Squirrely McLean and Bud Reynolds was big. Sure glad I decided to get into this plumbing biz."
I like it that he is in no way actively malicious here, and hey, he's just doing his job. And I really found it funny that they decided to keep Andy Wolf in his bumpkin pants with only one strap while he's still in Follywood, proudly introducing himself to the Zoo Crew when they answer the door. Pig Iron immediately recognizes Wolf, slapping him on the back joyously.
"Wolfie, my old pal!" "Pal, I don't remember knowing any Iron Pig. In those days I was Peter Pork Chops, your neighbor, remember?" "Petey, you?" "Yep, course I got through a lot of changes since then." "No kidding."
While a more annoyed Rubber Duck tells him to get to work. While Andy Wolf is fixing the plumbing, Pig Iron is casually relating his origin story, holding no ill will towards the neighbor who once tried to eat him repeatedly. However, Wolf is steadily getting more jealous, but keeping his thoughts to himself like a professional. Elsewhere in the building, Captain Carrot starts to revert back into Roger Rodney Rabbit and exposits on how he loses and regains his powers, which really only does two things. One, if this is your first issue, it does catch you up on how things work for him, and two, it is once again seeing them just calling him by his middle name full time. And in hindsight, I really wish they had just called him Rodney from the beginning, and that way his voice would be more of a Dangerfield riff. I get no respect, I tell ya! No respect! After getting paid, the zoo crew see Andy Wolf off, Pig Iron telling him to come back anytime. Captain Carrot whispers, "It seems like a nice guy."
Yeah, but he did try a shady deal on me once or twice.
Unfortunately, the green-eyed monster has gotten a hold of Andy Wolf, thinking to himself as he returns home,
"Why him? Rotten little pig, a superhero? And me, I'm just a plumber. Successful, yes. But they'll never put me on the cover of Newsweek. I should have eaten him while I had the chance."
With a full moon in the night sky and a pentagram coin in his pocket, Andy Wolf fumes as he transforms.
"I'm turning into a man. No, not even a man, like I read about in fairy tales. I'm in between. I was a wolf, but I ain't no more. I'm a Wuz-Wolf."
Andy Wolf walks so Bigby Wolf from Fables could run. Maybe Bill Willingham read this issue? The Wuz-Wolf has quickly made his way back to the Z building, talking to himself.
"I feel mean. Meaner than I ever felt in the old days. There's the place now to cure that ham permanently. I'll teach him to look down his snout at me."
Rubber Duck spots him from a window and knows he can't be up to any good, and tries to stop him, but Wuz-Wolf quickly ties him into knots and tosses him aside. The rest of the zoo crew come running towards the commotion, Yankee Poodle gasping, "Look! A human being! Or something not unlike one! He doesn't look like Super Mac!" "You mean Superman, Cap." Alley Cat Tabra steps up to the plate to take the Wuz-Wolf on, but unfortunately it's to no avail as he just laughs her magic off. Panicked, Yankee Poodle underlines the whole story reference. "A Wuz-Wolf! Oh dear, just like in those old Lux Cheney movies!" As Fastback tries to super speed tornado the Wuz-Wolf down, but he isn't even budging as trees are just getting torn out by the roots. Yankee Poodle makes her move, blasting her magnetic stripes at Wuz-Wolf, but he just grabs them and snaps them in two.
"Grr, I hate straps. Now, if you had something in herringbone."
The four zoo crewers can only flinch back in horror as they stand defeated. Wuz-Wolf now drooling and even crazier-eyed menaces.
"Yes, I licked you all separately, and I can do it even if you all strike me at once."
And the zoo crewers aren't down for the count yet, and work together as a team to try and bring him down. And the middle panel of page 12 is a really impressive fight sequence, and one I will definitely share on the socials. Fastback retreating into his shell and flying through the air begins round 2. "All together now, fellas! Here comes the blue projectile! I'll lasso him up like Quill Rogers. I can't think of a rhyme, Wanda, but zap him anyway. My animal magnetism will knock him for a lupine loop." But not even teamwork is slowing the Wuz-Wolf down, just tanking all of their attacks. At the end of the page, quipping, "Another few hours, and I might even start to feel it." Now all four are defeated, as Captain Carrot and Pig Iron stand up next. And I can kind of rationalize this, and that if all six were there, they might start tripping over one another and getting themselves hurt in the process.
"You see, weaklings, I've beaten the lot of you, just like I said I would. That's because I'm a Wuz-Wolf, part wolf, and all man."
"You haven't beat all of us, pal, but I will admit, I wouldn't mind negotiating for a while." "He's not faking, Cap. He's a real Wuz-Wolf. But since Wuz-Wolves aren't real, what's that make him?" "Oh well, I guess we'll figure it out after I've drop-kicked him." As the captain gets an attack on him from behind, hurting the Wuz-Wolf for the first time. With the Wuz-Wolf on his knees, Captain Carrot claims one more punch ought to end this melee, and the Wuz-Wolf agrees by punching the rabbit out. Now, he is ready for the fight he came for, squaring off against Pig Iron. Pig Iron wastes no time, landing a solid haymaker on the Wuz-Wolf, sending him soaring through the air. The Wuz-Wolf, now sitting in a daze, Pig Iron goes to find out who he really is, like an old Scooby-Doo episode. The rest of the zoo crew tell him to be on his guard, but Pig Iron smugly brushes it off.
Aw, heck, you guys, that was nothing. Next time, maybe I'll get a whack at somebody really strong.
Yet Rubber Duck's words of caution was right as Pig Iron proclaims,
Yipes! He was playing possum!
"Is that an offensive thing to say on Earthsea?" The Wuz-Wolf one-punches Pig Iron down for the count, proclaiming,
"Ha, man can beat a pig every time. I said this overgrown hog was my meat, and now I'll aim to prove it,"
before biting down, and not realizing that the swine of steel was literal, gives the Wuz-Wolf a major toothache, and gives the Zoo Crew a hint as to whom he might really be. The Wuz-Wolf just knocks Fastback into the rest of the Zoo Crew like a bowling ball, and just as Pig Iron is about to start the fight again, the Wuz-Wolf bite has churned him back into Peter Porkchops. And because it's funnier to me, I will be reading cute little Peter Porkchops with the same lummox voice that I normally do. Peter Porkchops can only panic as the Wuz-Wolf steps near before picking him up and taking him back to his house.
"Don't come near you. Why, on the contrary, I think I'll invite you to dinner. We're having a dish you don't see much on this world anymore. It's called roast pig."
And the main story ends with the Wuz-Wolf prepping his oven as a naked and hogtied, pun intended, Peter Porkchops looks on in terror as the narrator says, "Uh-oh, folks on Earthsea may not know much about the carnivorous habits of the mythical human beings, but we know what's about to happen, don't we? So be here next issue when you shell out 60 cents, and we'll shell out some answers in The Wuz-Wolf's Night to Howl. Peter Porkchops will be here, but we're not so sure about Pig Iron." Overall, this was a good main story. Not great, but it kept its pace. The fight at the end was really excellent. Everyone stayed in character, even with the change in writer. And while this wasn't the funniest story, there were still some good bits into it. Our backup feature, The Fadeaway Crimes of the Cheshire Cheetah, was written and co-penciled by Scott Shaw, co-penciled by Mike Sikowski, inked by Al Gordon, lettered by Carrie Spiegel, colored by Carl Gafford, and edited by Roy Thomas. This is actually the last issue Mike Sikowski was a part of, and since Shaw is having to do a lot of the heavy lifting with Fastback, and I believe the Cheshire Cheetah, I think they had to have figured out by this point that Sikowski was just not up to the task. Because everything Shaw doesn't pencil in this story is of noticeably lower quality, and this just had to be the final straw. Sikowski would only pencil like 3 or 4 more things after this, according to Mike's Amazing World. I think I have said before that Fastback is my favorite character of the Zoo Crew, so I am really glad that he finally gets his own story. The story begins with the narrator setting the scene of Follywood Boulevard as we see animals looking for Elkis's star, other tourists taking photos, and a beatnik giraffe catching up with someone as a dust cloud is looming over the horizon. The dust cloud is revealed to be Fastback going full tilt, accidentally causing a ton of chaos while he bemoans, "I just gotta get a new alarm clock!" And I just gotta point out, some of the Follywood Walk of Fame includes Stork Gable, Robert Red Fox, and Mickey Mouse. As he screeches to a stop, he causes a traffic accident, with one of the drivers calling him a roadhog, which would be a really good name if he and Pig Iron had ever switched powers. Fastback continues to think to himself, "And of all the mornings for me to oversleep, I had a pig listen. Well, here it is, Department of Animal Resources. Pretty fancy name for unemployment office if you ask me." Before a kid on the street confuses him for the Crash, whom we will meet in an upcoming issue. Zipping into an alleyway to change into Timmy Joe Terrapin, he thinks to himself, "Shoot, first I'm jobless, then I'm late, and now some kid thinks I'm one of Roger's funny book characters. What a day! Walking in nervously for his appointment, his aide tells him that he's been fired repeatedly for chronic tardiness, a nice little nod to the infamously late Barry Allen. However, the aide, Mrs. Shrewsley, has found him another job, to which Timmy Joe hopes is not air traffic controller again, which, oh my gosh, what was that like? But it is in fact a job for Crockheed Aerospace and Manufacturing. So Fastback is going to be a part of the Army Ant Industrial Complex. That evening, we are treated to the narrator giving us some purple prose to set the scene. Late that night, the sprawling complex of labs and factories of the Los Antelopes Crockheed Aerospace Research and Manufacturing Plant stands shrouded in darkness. Within the confines of these high-security storm fences, miracles of modern technology are created every day. Everything from space shuttle components to pack-rat video game cartridges are designed here. Considering their many government contracts, the Crockheed brass have established a crack security force to guard these many items of national importance. Ever alert, always vigilant, these security guards are trained to the peak of perfection to ensure the... whoops! Never mind. Disregard those last couple of captions, gang. As we see Timmy Joe in his new security job, just reading the funny pages and missing the headline of Industrial Thefts Continue, as something zooms right past his gate. We then cut to the lab of Dr. Werner von Braun with his experimental mini jetpack, and the, of course, unsaid joke of all Nazi scientists are better than their Nazi scientists. The new speedster has zoomed in, introducing us to the Cheshire Cheetah, who is a reference, I take it, to the Pink Panther, and is definitely written to sound like David Niven.
So I see, old boy, so considerate of you to have it ready for me, the Cheshire Cheetah. Sorry, old top, no time to chat, but I simply have to run. Ta-ta! Hee-hee-hee!
Now having stolen the jetpack, the Cheshire Cheetah speeds past Timmy Joe yet again. Bursting out of the lab, Dr. Von Braun is yelling about the theft, and while he's describing the situation to other guards... Just like I told you, it was a grinning bunch of spots mit their limey accent and... Timmy Joe realizes that this is his fault and changes into Fastback and speeds around looking for the culprit before thinking to himself, Shucks, nary a trace of that prototype plethora. No sign of any break-in neither. This Cheshire Cheetah this doctor described must be one slick dude. And across town in his Bel Airedale hideout,
I must say, old bean, you are one slick dude. You've done quite well for yourself since moving your little industrial espionage operation over here to the colonies.
While the local news shows off the new Destructo Mech 2 super tank.
Egad, absolutely wizard!
The following night, the Cheshire Cheetah vibrates through the walls while two soldiers stand guard facing away from the tank. The Cheshire Cheetah muses to himself,
I still can't get over these smashing new powers of mine. The result, I suspect, of my naturally high metabolism affected by a constant diet of the so-called fast food these Yanks are so proud of. Steak and kidney beans never enabled me to do this.
I do like that we do not waste any time with his origin. It really keeps the story moving, which for one involving two speedsters is very important. And Fastback pops out of the tank as the two begin a light speed skirmish. The Cheshire Cheetah first punching towards Fastback's head, who retreats into a shell, before his next punch just goes crashing right into Fastback's shell, really hurting him. Howdy, son. Y'all must be that cheating cheetah what robbed Dr. Von Braun.
By Godfrey, it's that backwoods Yank superhero, Fastback.
That's Fastback, you polka-dotted polecat, and it just looks like y'all just fell for my little old trap.
Even so, old chap, I can still take you out with a lightning-quick punch. Egad! Come out of there, you coward!
You know, for a feller as fast as y'all, you're a tad slow upstairs. I mean, I don't wear this little old shell just for effect. Deciding this theft is more trouble than it's worth, the cheetah just begins speeding off, but Fastback is right behind him, being cheered on by the soldiers. The chase goes throughout the complex, being observed by two poorly drawn Sikowski animals, before the Cheshire Cheetah leads Fastback to get flattened by a metal crusher. In what might be the most cartoon physics moment of this whole series thus far, Fastback is able to vibrate his molecules to go from being dead flat back to full strength instantly. And after a quick battle of cyclones, the Cheshire Cheetah thinks to himself,
"By Jove, we are somewhat evenly matched. Fortunately, I'm still carrying that stolen mini jetpack, my super accelerated ace in the hole. But let's give that high-velocity hillbilly a bit of a workout first. Eh, what?"
The chase leads into the city of Los Antelopes, and then across the ocean, where Fastback is called a hypersonic hick, which I just find very funny. It's a speedster chase all over Earthsea, now before the Cheshire Cheetah decides to strap the mini jetpack to give himself the extra push. Unfortunately, it causes his centrifugal force to move past the escape velocity and sends him soaring into space. Fastback watches, noting, "Just like it goes to show, like Mama used to say, cheetahs never win," before running back to work. But the office believes that he abandoned his post and is fired yet again. Our story ends with poor Timmy Joe Terrapin back in the unemployment line. Even with the bad Sikowski art, I just love this backup. Shaw's art for the hero and villain really do save it. Again, it was fast, and the back and forth between Fastback and the Cheshire Cheetah was hysterical. In some ways, it was like Woody Boyd versus Fraser Crane. I don't remember if we get more Fastback-centered stories, but I really hope we do. Overall, this was a good issue, not my favorite, and I did like the backup more than the front half, but it was an issue you could jump right into, and it is definitely worth your time to read. And with that, let's get on to our Looney Tunes pairing. Steel Wool was originally released June 8th, 1957. Directed by Chuck Jones, story by Michael Maltese, produced by Edward Seltzer, starring Mel Blanc, music by Milt Franklin, animation by Richard Thompson, Ken Harris, and Abe Levitow. Layouts by Maurice Noble, and backgrounds by Philip DeGard. With the use of Andy Wolf in the main story, there were a couple of different episodes I thought of. Bugs Bunny and Red Riding Hood, the Three Little Bops, but I wanted to showcase Sam Sheepdog and Ralph Wolf, who have one of the best dynamics in all of Looney Tunes. They were only in 7 or 8 shorts, but I think they are really remembered for being the cartoons where they are only enemies while they are on the clock and they're friends otherwise. You know, every short will have the "Morning Ralph," "Morning Sam," and I always just found this dynamic really funny even as a kid, and nothing has changed. I rewatched their first appearance, Don't Give Up the Sheep, but it has a lot of noticeable differences. On the plus side, Ralph Wolf has a noticeably different appearance where he is shorter, stockier, and has a different fur color rather than the virtual Wile E. Coyote clone he became. On the other hand, they did not have the formula down yet, and Sam was called Ralph, and it was only Ralph Wolf who was on the clock. So, amongst the other differences, I didn't want to cover that first episode, but they did quickly find their footing, and it really hits perfection here with their 4th episode, Steel Wool. The short starts with Sam and Ralph waking up, having a donut, and walking to work with their lunch pails, with the iconic "Morning Ralph, Morning Sam." As they're literally clocking in, Sam wishes Ralph good luck at work before the two get set for the day. Ralph gets his game face on, but both he and Sam wait until the whistle blows before they make a move. Ralph's first plot is to get as flat as he can and snake his way under a sheep far from Sam's vision. However, the sheep starts to bleat, and despite being shushed, Sam is just ahead of Ralph now. Ralph just smiles and plays innocent while trying to push the sheep away, but Sam just belts him so hard his nose becomes an accordion. Next, Ralph finds a little cave with a gopher hole at the top, starts looking for sheep through a little periscope, and once he finds one, he tries to lasso it in. However, as he starts reeling the rope back, he's got Sam in it instead, and whom, without even looking, just punches right down the hole, turning Ralph into a squeeze box. The next bit is probably my favorite because of its liberal use of cartoon physics. Ralph creates a suspension bridge made up of firecrackers, and he waves to get Sam's attention. Once Sam has fully crossed onto the other side, Ralph sneaks back onto the bridge with a sheep in hand and lights the fuse so Sam can't follow him back. But once Ralph reaches the other end, Sam is of course right there waiting for him, and Ralph just hands over the sheep before running back on the bridge. Sam lights the second end of the bridge as Ralph runs away, and as Ralph gets to the first end of the exploding firecrackers, he puts it out, and the bridge holds in midair right up until the second end of firecrackers catches up, and Ralph plummets out of the air like his cousin Wile E. Coyote. But luckily he just falls down into a tree, probably not the hundreds of miles Wile E. fell. Following that is a classic gag where Ralph sticks a plank of wood under Sam to make a quick teeter-totter before climbing up a tree. Of course, once Ralph drops down onto the other side, Sam doesn't even budge, and Ralph lands in his arms. As Ralph smiles sheepishly, Sam puts him down on one end of the teeter-totter and smashes down as hard as he can on the other side, sending the wolf flying through the air. In his penultimate ploy, Ralph wheels a giant cannon right up behind Sam on a hill. However, the second he lets go, the cannon starts chasing him until he hits another cliff. With no choice, Ralph makes a leap of faith onto a smaller cliff down below. But the cannon flips over so it's pointing straight down at him. Ralph then stands up to see if he is safe, but stands right up into the cannon, seconds before it fires, and sends him down below. In our grand finale, Ralph starts attaching a giant rubber band on two boulders on either side of Sam to make a slingshot of some sort, but we never get a chance to see what he was going to load into it because once Ralph starts to pull back on the rubber band, the boulders loosen and send him flying through a chasm wall. As the two boulders are anchored on to the chasm wall, Ralph on the other side is holding onto a tree for dear life before the boulders start to slip. The boulders then come flying through the chasm towards Ralph with the sound of a locomotive, which then tear him right through the tree. As the boulders in that part of the tree start tumbling Ralph head over heel until he hits another cliffside wall, and then collide into him again. Ralph's misfortune climaxes as the rubber band brings the rest of the tree to smash into him. It's 5 o'clock and the whistle blows as Sam and Ralph punch out for the day. Ralph is bruised and bandaged, but Sam kindly suggests that Ralph has been working too hard and should take tomorrow off, saying he can handle both jobs. Ralph just stumbles back home saying, "Gee, thanks, Sam. You're a pal," before collapsing and ending the short. There's a part of me that would want to see the next day. Would Sam be running back and forth between schemes? But I get it. That's the joke. While this short does have a lot of great gags, it is really the idea that this is just a 9 to 5 for both of these guys is what makes this series of shorts just work, and it's exemplary here. You totally get the sense that these two guys are probably on a bowling team together. So if you haven't seen this short, I highly recommend this and all of the other Sam and Ralph shorts. In closing, nothing left to say, but that's all, folks!